Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the You, Me, and BTC podcast. Thanks for joining us for number 132. I am Daniel Brown, and both of my co-hosts are kind of incapacitated right now. John is, he's getting some work done, and Tim has a delayed flight. So it's just me today, but we have a super special guest who I think more than makes up for Tim and John. Mr. Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live and Liberty Radio Network. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, that's super nice. I appreciate that, Daniel. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
So, you're here mainly to talk about the LRN Fundraiser, Indiegogo, for a satellite, and I'll let you explain more details in a minute. We've briefly mentioned it on the show, kind of teased people that we're going to have an awesome guest. I got to say, I've been a fan of Free Talk Live for several years now, listening on and off. Sometimes if I get into it, I'll just turn it on every night as I'm falling asleep. That's pretty nice. So
cool.
I got to first just say thank you. But before we get into the fundraiser, for anyone that doesn't know, can you give us an overview of LRN and FTL? What are they? What are your goals? What do you do?
Sure. I started Free Talk Live back in 2002 as an open phones panel discussion talk show. It ended up getting syndicated in 2004. We're now on over 170 radio stations coast to coast in the United States, and also on LRN.FM, which I launched back in 2009 for the purposes of kind of collecting together some of the great libertarian podcasts and live shows and putting them all in one place. On one network that streamed online 24 hours a day. It's since then expanded to free-to-air satellite, which is available in North and Central America and also Sub-Saharan Africa. So we actually have two satellite channels that broadcast the dozens of shows on LRN.FM. All of them come from a pro-liberty perspective, which many of your listeners may be familiar with, already having listened to your show, which of course is one of the shows. You, Me, BTC is one of the shows on LRN.FM.
Oh yeah, we love being on there, and it's nice to have another avenue to reach people. Now, here's one thing I've been thinking about for a while. I don't know if you have the answer to this, but just complete ballpark. Do you know roughly how many people are listening to LRN at any given time? Is it 50 people? Is it 500, 5,000? Any rough idea?
Well, the only thing we can get statistics on is internet listenership. So, during the day, depending on who's on, it could be as low as, a few dozen people listening to as many as maybe 80 or so on our streams online. Those are our audio streams. Okay. And as far as, listeners to radio, we have no idea. There are definitely people who are rebroadcasting the signal on pirate radio in various different places. So, I don't know how many pirate stations there are, and I don't know, of them, which markets they're in, how much power they're at. So it's hard to really have any idea how many people will be listening on radio, but let's say maybe hundreds to thousands more.
Okay.
And then on free-to-air satellite, that's another method that we have no way of tracking who the possible listeners are. We know the coverage area, which is, intercontinental, multiple countries, international coverage. But it's, how many people in that coverage area have satellite dishes pointed at the specific satellite that we're on. I don't know. The satellites we are on are very, very good satellites. They're highly used among the free-to-air satellite listenership out there. But, of course, there are hundreds of channels up there. So LRN competes with channels like RT, Press TV, other major channels that are up on free-to-air satellite. More people listen to free-to-air in places like Africa than they do in the United States. And so last year when we did the satellite fundraiser, we were able to raise enough money to continue our African satellite broadcast, which is very exciting to me because we'd been contacted by someone in Cameroon, Africa, named Akko, who was an active listener of the show or of LRN.FM, big fan of some shows like Freedom Fiends, for instance. And, he actually sent along pictures of satellite installs going on, claims that he was sharing LRN with a lot of his friends because in a place like Cameroon, the media is very restricted. It's, very state-controlled. And so someone with a cheap satellite dish pointing at a free-to-air satellite can get all kinds of news and information from around the globe from various different sources. So it's a great way for people in very unconnected areas to have some sort of a lifeline of information. So how many people are listening there? I really have no idea.
Yeah. It makes sense. It would be hard to tell. But I got to say, that's one of the things I love about you guys, just talking about pirate radio stations and all these satellite channels. I mean, you're not just Free Talk Live because you talk about freedom and liberty. That's awesome. But you're also just free and open, and everything's out there. Anyone can listen and stream at any time. I think that's really cool. I actually did some reading about pirate radio stations recently. I haven't taken any action yet, but it all sounds real cool to me, and I'd love to give it a shot maybe sometime. Let's see. One other thing I want to just talk about and mention before we get into this fundraiser is just your format. I love your open phone lines. I love your, you have a lot of good callers with good questions. You got a lot of funny callers. Is it Sarah from New Mexico who's been calling recently? Is that right?
Yeah, she's one of our more chronic recent callers. She tends to call every single night and frequently is completely unrelated to what we happen to be talking about at the time, which is fine, but I suspect she's not even listening to the show. I think she's one of those people who just wants to call talk radio, and she's found a show that won't screen her out. So yeah. That's what we do. We let everyone call, for better or for worse.
Right. Well, at the very least, it's entertaining.
Good.
I moved to Arizona a few months back, and so I guess I'm not far from her. I don't know how I feel about that, but. All right. Well, anyway, I love that about your show. So hit us now with the fundraiser. What's going on here? What are you raising money for? Is it succeeding? What should people be doing? I don't know. Well, what's going on?
Well, first of all, of course, we take Bitcoin. Now, Indiegogo does not facilitate that. So on the fundraiser page, if you scroll pretty much all the way down, you'll find a Bitcoin address to which you can send Bitcoin contributions, and that'll, of course, count towards the total that we're looking to raise. The website is fund.lrn.fm. That'll take you, it's a little forwarding URL that'll take you straight to the Indiegogo page, which will tell you more about what free-to-air satellite is, why it is that we're broadcasting there, what we'd like to do to expand the broadcast, because I mentioned we're on 2 satellites delivering content to Central and North America and Sub-Saharan Africa. And I'd like to, if we can afford to do so, add a 3rd satellite which will deliver LRN.FM and your show and dozens of other great liberty-oriented shows, plus a couple other Bitcoiner shows. Deliver it to Europe, as well as most of the Middle East and a good chunk of Northern Africa as well. So that's what I'd like to see happen. I don't know if it's going to work out,
right?
Because last year we didn't really make the goal that I was shooting for. But you sort of shoot for the moon and hope you get over the fence is kind of my idea. And so whether we make it to the goal this year of $25,000 or not is irrelevant. Since it's an Indiegogo, we'll be able to collect the amount, whatever the amount is raised, and continue the existing satellite channels. If we can make it to adding that 3rd channel, that'd be great. If all we get to do is just continue on, America, North and Central America and Sub-Saharan Africa, then I think that would be great as well. So far, we're up to $640. We have 11 people who've backed us thus far, which is 3% of the way, and we have about a full month to go here. So the Liberty Movement is there's money out there, but I don't know those people, so this is the best I can do to do fundraising.
Yeah, so I do see that it is a flexible goal, which means you'll collect even if you don't hit the goal.
That's right.
But just to confirm, you're saying if you don't hit the goal, the money will just go to the existing satellites to keep them running?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, let's. You mentioned Akko, but I want to know more about him because you feature him a little bit here in the story, and I know he's called in quite a bit, and he does have a good story. What is he the one who was getting sponsored to kind of, was he going to school or something to get to the States or something?
Yeah, I mean, he'd like to visit the States. I know he got sponsored to go to a libertarian conference. I think it was in Norway or Finland.
Okay, I think I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that ended up turning out, but he did let us know that was something he was working toward. I know that it involved him getting a passport, and I believe that was issued to him, but I don't know what the latest is on that story. It's actually been a little while since we heard from him. His mother passed away unexpectedly, I guess, and that kind of took him away for a little while. But I've since traded a couple of text messages with him over Facebook, so he's definitely still around.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, how did he find out about the show, and what does that mean for the fundraiser?
Well, he found us by sort of scanning the band. I mean, you know how people with a radio in their car will, if they're in a new area, they might scan around to find new radio stations. With satellite radio, with free-to-air satellite radio, the receivers, you can sort of have them scan the different transponders up there and see, if there's been channel changes, if there have been, channels have disappeared or new channels have been added. And so he found LRN.FM just by, flipping through the channels and listened. And Cameroon's a very English-speaking country. There's an area that's highly English-speaking and another area that speaks French. And so he is fluent in English. He's actually an English teacher down there. And he loved what he heard. I mean, there's a secessionist movement in his area of Cameroon, in the Bamenda area of Cameroon. And so he's actually part of that. Which is interesting. So there's a lot of kind of parallels between what they're doing there and what some of us would like to see happen here. And, of course, bringing the message of not just peace and liberty, but also Bitcoin to places like Sub-Saharan Africa, I think is a pretty valuable thing. So you've got this satellite channel that is basically a Bitcoin evangelist running 24/7. Because even if the show that is on the air at the moment isn't talking about Bitcoin, many of them do talk about it. Many of them are positive towards it, accept it personally, or accept it for advertising. Free Talk Live is probably the longest running show out there that's been accepting Bitcoin. We started back in like 2011, 2012 range. And so during the breaks, we have Bitcoin ads that run pretty much constantly throughout the day. I don't know how many times a day they're running, but it's quite a few times. So anyone that listens for a relatively short period of time will likely hear an advertisement talking about the benefits of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I mean, you hear story after story about how Africa is kind of ripe for Bitcoin just because they keep all their money on their phones, and they could have SMS wallets, or somebody with a tablet could be a bank or something. All kinds of stories like that, and lots of possibilities. So, all right. Tell us what the perks are, what people get in return for helping support an awesome Liberty radio station.
Well, they'll certainly get appreciation. That's one of the easiest perks to offer. I don't have time to do a bunch of shipping of product, so there's not like a bunch of T-shirts or mugs or whatever you might be used to from most Indiegogo campaigns. Most of the levels of contribution over at fund.lrn.fm are pretty much just recognition. So we have a satellite page on the LRN.FM site that talks about the channels we're currently on and gives appreciation to everybody who donated, who wants to be recognized. You can, of course, donate anonymously, and we won't say anything. But for anybody that does want to be recognized, then there's different categories of contribution, like bronze, silver, and gold. And then there are there's like one actual product perk. We have these Free Talk Live Platinum AMP pins. Free Talk Live has something called the AMP program, which many of our listeners support for $5 a month. But we had these AMP pins made, these little shiny badges made for our Platinum amplifiers who give Free Talk Live $25 a month. And so because, essentially people who are amping the show, amping Free Talk Live, are also supporting LRN, decided to appropriate some of those Platinum AMP pins for this Indiegogo fundraiser. So there are a few dozen of those available. The price is relatively high for that. And there's also the opportunity to sit in studio on various different shows, which is an option for your show. You guys stepped up and volunteered, as well as several other shows. So, if you're a fan of some of these shows on LRN, like Angel Clark or Anarchast, there's a bunch of them. You can actually go and sit in the studio. Now, obviously, we're not paying for the travel or any hotel stay on that, so that would be your responsibility. But that's another one of the perks. And if you want to really go up in the levels, then you can name an entire satellite channel and get a sort of a sponsorship across the entire network for whatever your thing is, whether it's your business or organization. more than happy to facilitate that as well. So mostly it's appreciation. This is a fundraiser. We don't have a whole lot of money, and having to spend some of the money that comes in on a bunch of stuff is just not something I want to do. And when I asked some of our existing supporters whether that was something they thought that they would value or not, most of them just said, "Look, we just want to give to the purpose of this. We're not looking to get a coffee cup." Or whatever. So.
Oh yeah, that's a great thing with the whole liberty movement. I mean, everyone's different, and there's a lot of different segments of liberty. But it is cool. There are quite a few people who are just like, hey, I've got some money and I want to support good things, and they do that. So that is great. Yeah, the sit-in studio. I don't know if it is a bit expensive, and I don't know if we got enough of a following for anyone out there to do that. But that would be super cool. You can come and sit in my room with me while I do interviews like this. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, yep, that's why people should donate. Support the cause, get a little bit of recognition if you want that. And yeah, the how is just fund.lrn.fm. And,
I'm interested to see how it pans out this year, because I don't have a video this year. Last year I made a little 4-minute video pitching the idea, and this year we got raided by the FBI here at the LRN studios, and they took almost all the storage equipment here, and that included the video files that I literally was close to putting the finishing touches on for this year's fundraiser.
Ouch.
So basically completely ruining all the effort that I'd put into that. Maybe next year I'll have a video if we get the equipment back by then. So I'm curious to see how the fundraiser will go, given that Indiegogo tells you that, oh, well, if you don't have a video, then you're not going to be as likely to raise money. So last year we raised just over $4,000, I think maybe $5,000. And it was maybe around 56 contributors. So we got a whole month left to go here, and are up to 11 contributors and about $600 so far. So we'll see what happens. I think more contributions tend to come in toward the end. But anytime, if you guys want to contribute, your listeners, we sure would appreciate it. Whether it's $5 or $50 or $5,000, or and as I said, in Bitcoin as well. We'll take it. We'll take Bitcoin. We sure would appreciate it.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone to get over there. My theory would be that most of the supporters would be a little more organic, and they wouldn't really be donating just because of the video. They'd be donating because they know people or they heard about it, and they're not just scrolling through Indiegogo like, oh, look at this video, sure, I'll donate. That would be my theory. So I would guess that you could do just fine, but that still sucks. I mean, yeah, I listened quite a bit when you guys were getting raided, and that was an intense time. Is there any news on that recently, or is it just waiting to hear?
The only news has been that they've given back my video camera when we requested that back, considering there's no actual storage on the camera. So they probably never should have taken it, but they didn't. They would claim they didn't know or whatever. And I guess they didn't have to give the camera back, so it could be worse. They could have just ignored that request, but they did give it back. So I'll take that as a good sign for what it's worth.
Awesome. Agreed. I hope it works out in the end, but it's the government. You never know. So
yeah, that's true.
I have one more question. Well, two more main questions before we wrap up. The first one is going to be our one of our standards here at Me, and BTC. Most of the time, sometimes we forget, but most of the time, or sometimes guests are just kind of different people. But most of the time, we like to ask for a personal Bitcoin story. I don't know why. We just kind of thought of it at one point and started doing it. And I know you use Bitcoin. So do you have anything interesting that you can share with us? Any crazy conferences, any crazy people, any terrible stories? I don't know, or good stories. Did you see how it could change the world? Anything kind of interesting and personal that you can share with us?
Well, I have the benefit of living in New Hampshire, which is probably, maybe the most active of Bitcoin states out there. It's hard to really know for sure, but we've got a great community here. And I'm in Keene, which is on the southwestern corner of the state. Not the biggest town in all of New Hampshire, but per capita, we probably have more Bitcoin-accepting businesses than any other place, not just in New Hampshire, but there was a top 10 list, I forget who put it out, of like top 10 Bitcoin accepting cities. And the number one city on their list was San Francisco. And I looked at the coin map at coinmap.org and compared the number of Bitcoin accepting businesses in San Francisco to its population and did the same for Keene and found that Keene has more Bitcoin accepting businesses per capita. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't some other small town out there. Like I remember hearing about a German small town that had a lot of Bitcoin accepting businesses, so maybe they've got us beat. But at the very least, it's better than the number one place, which is supposedly San Francisco. So I've had some hand in helping to create that. I helped out with a local vegetarian food truck that is set up here for several months out of the year. They close during the wintertime. But I got them. It took me, I don't know, I'd say it took me like a year and finally closed them on accepting Bitcoin. I met them originally at the county fair and then followed up with them and followed up and finally got them to start accepting it, and they love it. And they're not the only place that accepts it. We've got a couple other places. There's a little corner news store that sells newspapers and cigarettes and drinks and things like that. You can go there. You can buy anything you want. They've been accepting Bitcoin for a long time now, probably like 3 years here in Keene. And then there's a place right across the street from them called Local Burger where we go every Sunday. They've been accepting Bitcoin for a good chunk of this year. We just got another place on board that's a pizza place in town. So it's very, very exciting to be in a place where there's so much Bitcoin activism. We've got the only 2 Bitcoin vending machines, actually 3 now in New Hampshire publicly. That's the only 2 the only 3 according to the Bitcoin ATM radar in all of New England. And so one of them's here in Keene. So I help with administering that. And so I don't know if that's a story exactly, but it's certainly...
That's perfect. Yeah, just interesting stuff. That's exactly what we go for, and that's very interesting. It's great to hear. Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun to use Bitcoin in real life. I don't know how many people actually have taken the time to go somewhere and do that. But if you come to New Hampshire, you can do that.
It's kind of been a running joke on the show. I mean, the first few episodes, well, maybe 10 or 20 in, we started saying, hey, this is cool, but I haven't actually used it in person yet. And so we've gone to conferences and stuff, and for whatever reason, or just different places where I went to a casino in Vegas where I could have spent Bitcoin, and for whatever reason, every time I forget, or I don't have my phone or something, or there's no reception, and so it's kind of been a running joke how I keep saying that I need to do it in person. I've used it plenty online though, and I've sent it to like friends in person and stuff, but.
Sure.
Anyway.
Well, it's kind of a bumpy road for getting businesses on board with, because even though it's better now than it's been in the past, the merchant applications are better. Like BitPay's got a really good one. Unfortunately, they have no kind of incentive structure, so there's no real for people out there to like sell BitPay or to promote BitPay. They don't actually provide any kind of financial reward for that, which is unfortunate. So really the only reason to promote it is for the love of Bitcoin, which of course we do. But getting people set up means getting them some sort of point of sale application, so a tablet or whatever, and then making sure the app's on there and that they know what to do with it, and make sure they charge the thing. There have been a couple times when we've gone to Local Burger and the staff has forgotten to charge their tablet, so when they try to turn it on, Bitcoin is not available that day. So it can be kind of a rocky road, a learning experience for the store and their employees. But so far, it's worked out pretty well for the most part. And everybody that I've talked to, all of the store owners who accept Bitcoin, they are really appreciative of it. They like Bitcoin. I mean, obviously, it's easy to like Bitcoin when the price is going up, but they do like it. And one of the things I found out is that they tend to keep it. So I was curious to find out whether or not, are they cashing it out or are they keeping it? And they do tend to keep their Bitcoin. So that's very, very interesting, and it's good to know that they're into it. They're not just doing it because some of their customers want it. They've really seen the value in it and the value in holding on to it. And what we also have to some extent here, because there are a few places right in the heart of downtown Keene. And Keene's not a big place. It's only a population of about 23,000 people. So it's pretty intimate here. Word gets around. And so the like, for instance, a Corner News owner has gone to the vegetarian food truck, and she has taken the Bitcoin she's gotten and, sent it to them and bought some lunch from them. So there's almost like a little merchant-to-merchant Bitcoin economy going on here, which is kind of cool, because in a place like Keene and in a lot of places, there's this whole big buy local thing. Businesses will put up a sign in their front window that says, buy local. And, there's like the mountain range that we have here, the Monadnock Mountain. And it's just like a big deal to buy local. And Bitcoin is basically, while it's an international currency, it's also like a hyper-local currency in a way, because as you know, it puts the power of money in the individual's hands and takes it out of the hands of the banks and the government. And so it does sort of accomplish that local currency thing that a lot of the buy local people might be into. I mean, for years there were things like the Ithaca Hour, for instance. I don't know how familiar you are with some of those alternative currencies.
I don't. The Ithaca Hour? I don't think so.
Yeah, so years ago, and I think it was probably the 80s or late 70s or something like that, somebody in Ithaca, New York started the Ithaca Hour, and it was an alternative local currency that sadly was based on the U.S. dollar. And there's a lot of problems with the that's one of them, but there are a lot of problems with the whole hour concept. Without getting into detail, anyone who wants to can Google it and learn more about it. But there have been various different iterations of that in other areas. There's like one in Colorado, the Mountain Hour, and there's one in there's a few of them elsewhere. Anyway, there's some people who really value the idea of a local currency, and so even though Bitcoin is international, if people are using it locally and they feel like they have some ownership in it, it could have that kind of hyper-local feel to it as well. So I think that's one of the benefits that it has to it. Plus, of course, it's relatively easy to use. So people who are big Bitcoin fans should really, and if they're libertarians, they really should consider a move to New Hampshire to get around some of the Bitcoin movers and shakers here, because it's working.
Can you give us? I agree. A lot of great stuff is happening there in Bitcoin and in Liberty. And I know I said two more questions, but this brings up one other thing. Can you give us a quick overview of kind of the Free State Project, or just the general movement in New Hampshire? What's going on there? With
Free State Project is just one of the migrations to New Hampshire. There's also the Shire Society at shiresociety.com, where that's a less organized version, sort of, or a competitor, if you will. It doesn't have a board of directors. There's no membership. It's just a declaration of independence and then an encouragement for libertarians and volunterists to move to New Hampshire and get active here. There's no place in the world that has more of a concentration of liberty-minded people than New Hampshire, hands down. No one else, nowhere else in the world has it. And to learn more about it, I would recommend checking out the 101 Reasons to Move to New Hampshire, which you can go to 101reasonsfilm.com. I'm the co-producer of that movie. Had the honor of being co-producer there. And it goes over, and I'm pretty sure Bitcoin is one of those reasons in that movie, but it goes over 101 great reasons why New Hampshire is already the most free place, arguably, in the United States and maybe even the whole world in a lot of ways. But it's certainly the most largest liberty community out there, and it continues to grow. We've got thousands of people here now, and thousands more are slated to come here. So it's just going to get better. The Bitcoin community here is incredible. There are Bitcoin meetups all the time. They're weekly in Manchester. We get a couple a month out here in the Keene area, and there's other cities that have them. They've been going on for like 3 years in Manchester. So it's just incredible. We've had people like the Lamassu guys from the Lamassu Bitcoin ATM. They've lived here in New Hampshire. The Lamassu was created here in New Hampshire. People like Eric Voorhees have lived here as well. Roger Ver is a Free State Project participant, although he's currently living outside of the U.S. There's just a bunch of Bitcoin movers and shakers here, and it just keeps getting better. Right.
Yeah, I for a long time, for years really, one of my goals with just my life has been to be kind of independent and not be tied down to one place. And I'm still getting there, but that once I do, it'd be cool to spend some time in New Hampshire and to see what's going on there. And I sounds like a lot of good stuff, a lot of good people, a lot of good work in Bitcoin. And then maybe I'll finally be able to spend it in person there one day. So, all right. Well, hey, Ian, thanks a lot for joining us. My last question, the second one that I wanted to get to, is just one more time. Can you tell people where to find you and you know, the fundraiser and just Free Talk Live, LRN. Where should they be looking? Websites, Twitter, I don't know if you want to share emails or Facebook, anything at all. What should people be looking for right this second?
Yeah, well, we're on all of those things. So if you want to contribute to the fundraiser, please go to fund.lrn.fm. That takes you right to the Indiegogo fundraiser, and I really appreciate it. And it helps spread the word of Bitcoin around the globe. So that's fund.lrn.fm. If you want to listen to LRN, you can go to lrn.fm. There are a variety of ways to tune into that. You can listen to Free Talk Live via podcast. You can listen live. You can, listen on satellite, however you want to. There's a bunch of options. You've got to listen line. You can call up with your phone. So you can go to freetalklive.com if you want to learn more about that there. I blog at freekeene.com. That's a good way to kind of keep in the loop with some of the stuff happening here in New Hampshire, including some of the Bitcoin success stories about converting businesses over. So very, very cool stuff happening, and I appreciate you asking all those great questions. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks one more time. Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live, from Liberty Radio Network, and from the relatively free state of New Hampshire. Thanks again for being here.
My pleasure.
CryptoGames.net is an online casino where you can play with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, Litecoin, and more. They've got your classic dice game with an incredibly low house edge of 0.8%. You can also try your hand at blackjack, slot machines, or the lottery. If you're looking for more than just games, invest in the house edge to share profits and losses with the casino. Try it absolutely free right now and catch the winning spirit at crypto-games.net. That's crypto-games.net.
And here we go. Guys, I'm here by myself. I haven't done one of these for a while. I'm Tim Baker, if no one recognized my voice yet. Daniel had me doing this. He's having me do this one by myself because I missed the earlier part of this episode, which would have the interview with Ian Freeman. I'm sure it's amazing. I haven't heard it yet, but I have to support Daniel on anything because he's very sensitive about that stuff. But yeah, he felt that you guys should be forced to have to listen to me by myself. After that, and because I missed, I think, the episode beforehand. I was on vacation, and that actually does have a little bit to do with what I'm about to talk about, because when I was on vacation, I was pretty much drunk the entire time, and then I'm listening. I would start to hear news stories like you'd hear about France and the terrorist attack in France and the coup that happened in Turkey. But possibly the alcohol was blunting it. I was kind of interested. I mean, I don't normally watch the news too much, but because I was on vacation, there was a hotel, so there were TVs around that had like Fox News, CNN, Russia Today, stuff like that. So they were all covering this stuff. But while I was on vacation, I was texting John, and something about his work and about how everyone was playing Pokemon Go. And I mentioned something about the coup in Turkey, and his response was something along the lines of, I have no idea what's going on in Turkey. I haven't even heard about it. I'm sure Pokemon Go is more important, which I'm kind of agree with him. At least I'm starting to more. And that's regardless as to how little I actually care about Pokemon Go and like the half a mile it's making some person walk a little bit more so that they're a little bit better in shape because people are, I don't know, just walk on a damn treadmill and listen to a book for something. People have to have so much now. Anyway, now obviously his comment about Pokemon Go being more important is a tongue-in-cheek comment, at least. Maybe it's not. Maybe John just doesn't give a shit about anything but catching Pokemon. Who knows? He's a weird dude. But obviously if you're stuck getting shot at by a helicopter, then maybe the turkey coup would be more important than catching whatever Pokemon you're going after, like a Rhyhorn. And yeah, I looked that up because I'm an adult and I quit remembering the names of fake Japanese animals about 8 years ago, but again, whatever. Outside of that very specific scenario, though, with the helicopter, not with the Rhyhorn, yes, technically your life has changed in the sense that you're going to see stuff on the news and Twitter and the butterfly effect and all stuff is going to change. But besides that, I'd argue that my life hasn't changed And probably your life hasn't changed because it's just not something we're involved in. And the news just kind of brings stuff up like this, or the terrorist attack in France, where again, yeah, it's an impact on the victims. It's a impact on the guy who did it. I mean, he's dead. It's an impact on the people of France, maybe as a whole, maybe not so much the cities as you get further and further away from them. Besides, the government's probably going to change some laws around to not really end up protecting anybody. But, and it has had it's given me a little bit of a change because I had a vague, drunken notion of re-getting my concealed carry permit. But we'll see how far that even goes. But, again, that's not something that is really... People want to say that it's changed their lives. And yeah, again, as I said before, in the nitpicking sense, sure, it's changed your life. It's been an emotional thing to you. But it hasn't... Your day-to-day doesn't change, most likely, unless you're somehow connected. Your day-to-day does not change, like I said, outside of a very specific and very close proximity to these things that are happening. But the news is going to try to bring that up, and it's everything. This is so important. You need to be tweeting about it. And if you're not tweeting about it, then you don't care. And there's all these prayers for nice and pray for Turkey, and you have other people who are just like, well, now we just have to blow the whole Middle East up, or let's send people into Turkey to calm it down, stop this destabilization. And these other people who want to have a government intervention into it, because we all know that just works out so well whenever you send more force into something to fight against an enemy that it's like an idea of terrorism versus an actual enemy. I'm not trying to downplay the events, but because obviously they're huge events. They're interesting to look at because that sounds kind of rude maybe that they're interesting to look at, but that's all it is. That's all the news stuff is. It's just voyeurism. It's just entertainment from something happening to somebody else, and we just, ooh, yeah, this is exciting. I want to watch this. But you can't downplay it. A coup in Turkey is huge. A terrorist attack in France is huge. It's something that happens, but like I said, all of this effort that goes into publicizing it and making a media thing out of it is just, that's all. It's just media stuff. It doesn't change anything. Nothing happens. The government may or may not, the government's going to take action in Turkey because of a coup, and they may or may not take action in France. They probably will, but all that's going to end up doing is either increasing likelihood of more attacks if you then go and just say, well, now we just have to nuke the entire Middle East and you're just going to radicalize more people, or they're just going to make terrorists kill people in a different way. Instead of using bombs or guns, they're just going to use trucks or trains or something like that. Just interrupted there for a second with some trains. Again, as I was mentioning about terrorists using trains, one thing I want to say is I think there should be a law made to use to just get rid of the stupid whistles. I feel like if you're in a position where a train whistle is going to save your life probably isn't worth saving because you're doing something stupid. Anyway, going on from that. As I said, I don't mean to downplay the events. Nothing's going to change. Maybe government will make a different law. There's some people, if there's a terrorist out there, and that terrorist wants to kill people, he's going to kill people. So, going all the way back to Pokemon Go and John's obsession with it. It's a decent example of something that you can put out and people can download, and it's something, it helps, it's getting people to move around, it's doing better. Bitcoin's a better example of something that you can download onto a phone or a computer that then is going to help you, that's going to actually benefit you as an individual versus just tweeting about a tragedy. But maybe if Pokemon Go, again, wasn't just a bunch of people walking for the first time in 2 years, I could maybe see a benefit more. Like if it made you do sprints up a hill, something like that, do some push-ups. But anyway, it's great for people to walk. It's better than whatever Michelle Obama's thing, their Let's Move program, which it just seems like it's just her scaring little kids, because compared to Barack, she looks like a bodybuilder. Probably has a way better bunch than him, but again, other things that don't really matter and are just frivolous. My point is, laws aren't going to change people. Tweets aren't going to change people. Instagram posts aren't going to change people. people and your interaction with people is what's going to change people. And then, yeah, you can say you're interacting with people over Twitter, but not really. Not in the sense that it actually matters. And I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit. Bitcoin still has that ability, and really, I mean, other things do too, things like PayPal, or I guess you could always just send money in an envelope. Bitcoin's a little bit different because it does let you get to pretty much anyone who's able to get a Bitcoin wallet. It lets you like get in and actually be a part of somebody's life, because once you're talking over like a certain distance, the only thing that really changes someone's life is goods and or things you can exchange for goods, like money, dollars, Bitcoin, etc. Because if you're actually talking about a tragedy, if you actually want to help someone, even if it just seems like kind of shallow, sending $30 to an actual, like a relief fund, especially if you do it with Bitcoin or something like that, where you can kind of more verify that it's going directly to that, or to those people, that's going to make a difference. No pray for nice or something like that is no tweet, at least. Maybe if you believe in God and you're praying, you can kind of make, I don't see a difference. You can kind of say that there's a difference after you pray about it. But money and stuff like that is the thing that's going to make a difference. No child is better off because someone posted about a tragedy. The other side of the coin is people who say the perpetrators, everyone has to die, all the terrorists need to go. The child's not any better just because you kill some terrorists. You want to help someone in need, give them money. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. It's pretty simple. News and everything like that, and Twitter and commenting on it is just something we all kind of enjoy doing. It doesn't help people, it doesn't change things. So I guess just treat it like that. If you're going to watch it, it's something to take up your time while you rest from the whole 2 miles you walked. You get a Pidgeotto and a Bulbasaur. It's just remember that.
We'll see you next Thursday, guys. All of the music in today's show was from Jon Stewart. Find more at youmeandbtc.com.